Quiet on the set, please.
Camera speed.
Sound production, take one.
And action!
Welcome to From Beneath the Hollywood Sign. If you love old movies, Hollywood history, or the golden age of filmmaking, you've come to the right place. This is the podcast that talks about amazing stories of Tinseltown from another era. Hear fascinating conversations with writer-producer Steve Cubine, who quite literally lives just beneath the Hollywood sign, and actress-writer Nan McNamara. Now your hosts, Steve and Nan.
Welcome, everyone, to From Beneath the Hollywood Sign. Steve and I are so excited that you're with us today, especially because today we are going to be giving tribute to really one of the great icons, and I don't use that word lightly. This truly is a great icon of cinema, and that is Robert Redford.
On September the 16th of this year, we lost Robert Redford, and he was like the golden boy of Hollywood, and he passed away in his beloved Utah at 89. He was a towering figure in American cinema whose influence spanned over 6 decades as not only an actor, but a director, a producer, and also an environmental activist, which is really important to him. He was known for, of course, his striking great looks, his natural charisma, and what I loved about him most, his understated acting style. He became a leading man in the 60s and 70s with such classic films like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, The Sting, All the President's Men. I mean, the list goes on and on. But his legacy goes far beyond the screen.
Redford helped reshape the landscape of independent filmmaking by founding the Sundance Film Festival in 1981, creating a vital platform for emerging voices and diverse stories in American cinema. Also, as a director, he earned acclaim and an Academy Award for Ordinary People, 1980, one of my favorite all time.
One of my top 5 films of all time.
Yep, showcasing his ability to explore complex human emotions with quiet power, which I think is so interesting because that's kind of how I envision him.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, that quiet
complex,
strength. Yeah.
yes, but quiet. Throughout his career, Redford also, as you alluded to, has been a passionate advocate for environmental conservation and political engagement.
I read one time that he actually thought in the 70s he was going to run for office, which is interesting. I wish he had.
I wish he had. I would have voted for him. Lending his voice and influence to the causes he believed in.
Now, from Hollywood legend to cultural pioneer, Redford's legacy, it's really defined by artistic excellence and social consciousness and this enduring commitment to telling meaningful stories, which I so love and appreciate.
Yes. So to celebrate his life and career, Steve and I are going to talk about some of his lesser known, less celebrated films that we think deserve a second look.
We're going to kick it off with my first film that I chose for Redford. It was actually his third feature film, and it really proved vital in establishing him as a leading man. And it's Inside Daisy Clover from 1966. It is a fascinating psychological drama and part musical. Figure that out.
Don't forget that.
Yeah. And it was directed by Robert Mulligan, who had just directed To Kill a Mockingbird a few years earlier, and it was written by Gavin Lampert based on his own novel. It stars Natalie Wood in the title role of Daisy, and it features Christopher Plummer, Ruth Gordon, and Roddy McDowall, among others. The film, which is set in California in 1936, is about Daisy Clover, who's this rebellious 15-year-old who lives with her eccentric mother, Lucille, played by the great Ruth Gordon. And Daisy, she dreams of stardom, so she records a demo and she sends it over to Swan Studios, hoping to be discovered. Well, her boldness and her raw talent catch the eye of Raymond Swan, played by Christopher Plummer, and he's this cold and controlling head of the studio. Well, he brings her out to Hollywood and he grooms her into this marketable young star. Daisy quickly rises to fame, undergoing this transformation that erases her rough edges, but it also kind of erases her individuality.
Yes.
Which is a problem.
Good point.
Yeah, and Daisy, she's thrown into this glamorous but isolating world, and it's controlled by a system that views her as a product rather than a person. And that comes into play later. Well, as she navigates fame, Daisy becomes involved with Wade Lewis, played by Robert Redford, of course, and he's a charming actor who's also under contract with Swan Studios. Well, their whirlwind romance leads to a secret marriage, but Wade soon abandons her. And then, as you find out, his ambiguous sexuality and his disinterest in commitment leaves Daisy obviously very confused and hurt. Well, the studio covers all this up, prioritizing image over truth. Mm-hmm. Emotionally fragile and increasingly disillusioned, Daisy struggles with the pressure of stardom. And after her mother dies, Daisy really spirals further, culminating in this breakdown during a recording session. And that scene is an acting tour de force for Natalie Wood, and you have to see it.
Amazing.
Yeah. Well, her psychological unraveling, it really exposes kind of the emotional abuse she's endured under the studio's control. Well, the rest of the film deals with Daisy's struggle against the manipulation of Raymond Swan and her fight to find herself again. Will she ever find happiness? That's the question.
Right.
It's a stunning film, and it has a stellar cast, and the performances are incredible, especially Natalie Wood, I would say. The film was a commercial and critical flop. No
Which
surprise.
is so surprising.
You know
I
what?
guess.
I'm not surprised.
You're not surprised?
I'm not,
Why?
because I think it was too Hollywood insider for most people.
Nowadays, that would be very well received.
It would be very
Hollywood
well
I mean,
received.
think of
Yeah.
the studio that
Oh,
Seth
yeah.
Rogen's doing, and
People want
go
to
crazy.
see the dark dirt behind
Right, but back
the
then,
facade.
that's a really good point.
Yeah, I don't think they really got it. And plus, I think the dark themes might have been a little off-putting too.
Yeah.
Redford did receive positive reviews for his nuanced performance, and the film did garner Academy Award nominations for its art direction and its costume design. Plus, the great Ruth Gordon was nominated as Best Supporting Actress. Gordon ended up taking home the Golden Globe Award in the supporting category, and Robert Redford won a Golden Globe as Most Promising Newcomer Male. Now, Natalie Wood, she was nominated, but she didn't win. She was beaten by Elizabeth Taylor for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
Okay.
Tough year.
Well, yeah, that's a
Over
competitive.
time, I've found that Inside Daisy Clover has sort of been rediscovered, and it kind of enjoys an almost cult-like following. And I think now people have embraced that dark look at what goes on behind the Hollywood scene. So I think that's why it's sort of gotten rediscovered by filmgoers today. It's definitely worth checking out.
I can't wait to rewatch it. I haven't seen it in quite a few years.
So good.
Yeah. Well, my first Robert Redford selection is Downhill Racer,
Yes.
1969.
I love that movie.
Directed by Michael Ritchie, which was his directorial debut.
Yeah.
It's written by James Salter, who is actually better known as a novelist and award-winning author. He was nominated for a Writers Guild of America award for this screenplay, which was based on the novel by Oakley Hall. Now, Redford plays Dave Chapelet, a downhill skier who makes the U.S. Olympic ski team after one of its bright hopes is injured. His hot-headed coach, played by the great Gene Hackman,
Yes.
isn't a fan of what he sees as Dave's self-absorbed, arrogant attitude. But we learn that this is really born out of insecurities and a distant father who doesn't understand him. He is also unable to connect with two women he encounters, one his hometown girlfriend and the other the daughter of a European ski manufacturer, played by Camilla Sparv, who matches his aloofness in a way, which allows us to see Dave's vulnerability and really, I think, his overall need to be loved.
Yeah.
But he is absolutely fearless on the mountain. And the question is, will he be able to win the gold medal in the men's downhill at the next Olympics? Writer Salter was inspired by two real-life skiers, Billy Kidd, who won a silver medal at the '64 Olympics. Salter is quoted as saying Kidd was, quote, tough, in all likelihood from a poor part of town, and also, in the manner of champions, somewhat arrogant and aloof. The other influence for Salter was Spider Savage. Salter described him as golden, unimpressible, a bit like Redford himself.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So Salter and Redford traveled to Grenoble alongside the U.S. ski team during the winter of '68, joining them on their bus journeys and sleeping in the same hotels. And Redford would later comment on how his own performance was shaped by the aloof and sometimes difficult athletes that he encountered on the trip.
I love that.
Yeah. The film was shot on location in Austria, France, Switzerland, and Colorado, as well as on the lot at Paramount. Roman Polanski was originally set to direct, but was pulled off for Rosemary's Baby in 1968, and Redford was also in the running to play the John Cassavetes role in Rosemary's Baby.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. Downhill Racer was released in October of '69. This was a huge year for Redford. The film came out 2 months after Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and was followed by Tell Them Willie Boys here. Quite a year, earning him the '71 BAFTA Award for Best Actor for the three films. Redford was an avid skier in real life. In an interview with Roger Ebert in '69, he said, "When you take the sport to its farthest extension, you begin to find the strange effect it has on men, like Why does a man go 80 miles per hour down the side of a mountain when he knows that in order to win, he must ski almost out of control?
Wow.
And he said that's what we were trying to get into with this movie. So it's a very interesting subject.
The way they shoot those ski sequences, it's amazing. I mean, you really get the feeling of out of control, reckless, like
exactly
thrilling.
And interesting that you bring that up. Redford did do some of the skiing in the movie, but Joe J. Jalbert served as Redford's ski double, performing the more dangerous
I was just going to ask. I wonder who that ski double was. Yeah.
And he also helped pioneer the handheld first-person camera footage in the film so that it captured the true speed and tension of the sport. You really do feel like you're skiing down the mountain.
It's beautifully shot.
Yes. Redford was a driving force in getting the film made, making it independently and then seeking distribution. And he's quoted as saying, "In 1969, I carried Downhill Racer under my arm, fighting the battles that most indie film people face. And through that, he came to understand the dilemma of, quote, the filmmaker who spends 2 years making the film and then another 2 years distributing it, only to find out he can't make any money on it. And 4 years of his life are gone." And
welcome to independent filmmaking.
Well, and this is what he said. "I thought that's who needs help." So this was the birth of the Sundance Institute and the film festival, which, as we know, was named after the bank robber that Redford played in Butch Cassidy. Redford's performance is absolutely remarkable. He plays that subdued, really an anti-hero.
Yeah.
I mean...
he's not always the nicest guy.
No, he's not. But he plays it with such complexity, and yet it's a very contained performance. What he's able to convey with a look, whether it's the fierce determination he shows with his striving to win, or this confusion and lack of confidence we sometimes see coming to the surface for just a second or two before being pushed back down. I mean, he's what I call the definition of great film acting. It's what it's all about.
Yeah.
You see everything on his face.
Oh, the camera loved him.
Yeah. Roger Ebert called it the best movie ever made about sports without really being about sports at all, which I think is true. It's not really about downhill skiing.
It's not really about, exactly.
But to your point, the scenes down the mountain,
unbelievable.
And you're a skier.
I am a skier, so I love this movie.
Yeah.
And I wish I could ski like that.
Yeah.
Well, my next film in the Redford canon is it's maybe one of my favorites. It's This Property is Condemned. I mean, it is Southern Gothic at its finest.
Yes.
It's from 1966, and it's based on a one-act play by none other than Tennessee Williams himself. So, the film comes with quite a pedigree. I mean, it's directed by Sidney Pollack. In fact, it was only Pollack's second time in the director's chair. The credited screenwriters on the film were Francis Ford Coppola, Fred Coe, and Edith Summer, although tons of people had a crack at it. I mean, there were so many writers that were involved in this at the beginning. It was produced by the great John Houseman, and the cinematographer was the iconic James Wong Howe. This Property is Condemned. It has all the Tennessee Williams elements that we have grown to love. It's melancholy. It's got the Southern vibe. It's this horrible, dysfunctional family, star-crossed lovers, and a leading lady who could rival Blanche Dubois in her delusions.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just impactful. Well, it's set in the Depression-era Mississippi town of Dodson, whose livelihood comes from the railroad business. The film is told in flashback by a young girl named Willie Starr, played by Mary Badham, who was fresh off of To Kill a Mockingbird by a few years. Well, Willie now lives alone in this condemned boarding house, which was once operated by her family. The film starts with this haunting image of Willie, and she's dressed in this tattered evening gown with high heels that are too big for her feet. She's adorned with all this cheap jewelry and all this garish makeup, and she's holding a baby doll with a cracked head as she balances on the rail of this lonely railroad track. It's such a haunting image. As she's walking along the railroad track, she encounters this young boy played by John Provost, who we all know from Lassie, the TV show, and she begins to recount this tragic story of her older sister, Alva, played by Natalie Wood. The story really really kicks off in a flashback as she tells a story, the arrival of Owen Legate, played by Robert Redford. He's this handsome and pragmatic railroad official, and he'd been sent to this town basically to lay off all the workers, so it's really tragic for their economy.
Yeah.
Well, Alva, she's this beautiful, charming, but very restless young woman, and she's desperate to escape not only this small town, but the manipulative and scheming clutches of her mom, played by the great Kate Reid. It's a powerhouse performance by Kate Reid.
She's amazing.
Yeah, well, Alva soon passionately falls in love with Owen, and her mother, who basically pimps out Alva for the family's financial needs, tries to push her towards a wealthier suitor, Mr. Johnson, played by John Harding. Well, when Owen is attacked by some of the resentful railroad men, he plans to leave town, but he's going to take Alva with him, so she thinks. However, her mother deceitfully convinces Owen that Alva is engaged to another man, which causes him to leave alone. Well, heartbroken and angry, Alva, out of revenge and kind of out of spite, she marries her mother's brutish lover, J.J. Nichols, played by Charles Bronson in an early role for him. And he's always had the hots for her, so just out of spite, she goes off and marries him. But the next morning, she steals all of his money, and she takes the marriage license, and she hightails it to New Orleans and finds Owen. So they reconnect, and for a while, they have happiness. For a while, it's good. But then Hazel appears, and things go south. And I don't want to give away too much, but you know, it leads to basically tragic conclusions all around.
Well, it is Williams, right?
It is Tennessee Williams. So what do you expect? A happy ending? But as the film closes, the story returns back to Willie at the railroad tracks, and she's still wearing the oversized evening gown and the cheap jewels, but she's romanticizing this tragic romance that her sister never fully realized. It's really haunting, and you realize that maybe Willie has taken a turn towards Alva's fate. Hopefully not. Well, behind the scenes, this film was a fiasco.
Oh, boy.
There were so many writers that took a stab at the script, and finally, Sidney Pollack just locked himself in a hotel room. He cut and pasted all the previous drafts together to come up with the final script. Now, initially, they wanted Elizabeth Taylor to play Alva, even though she was 34 and would be playing like a 19-year-old.
Okay.
Thankfully, Elizabeth thought better of it and dropped out.
Yes.
And then, of course, Natalie stepped in. Now, Mary Badham, who played Willie, she later recalled that shooting on location in Mississippi was very stressful. And this is a quote. It was a very tough shoot. Nat was going through a really difficult period in her life. We had script changes daily. It was unbelievable. It was a madhouse. Well, not long after production ended, despondent about her career and also her personal life, Natalie Wood reportedly took an overdose of sleeping pills right after this movie.
Oh, boy.
I know. Well, the film, much like Inside Daisy Clover, it was a box office flop.
Okay.
It failed to even recoup half of its budget. So it received mixed to negative reviews. And aside from Natalie Wood receiving a Golden Globe nomination for Best Actress, the film received no other nominations for any other major awards. However, over time, it's also gained a cult following, especially among Tennessee Williams and Natalie Wood lovers.
Yes.
And I think it's definitely worth watching, if for nothing else, just for a second, to live in the glow of that incredible chemistry between Robert Redford and Natalie Wood. It's all worth it. You got to see it.
Yes. Wonderful. Great choice.
Thank you.
Well, before we move on to more films that we're going to talk about featuring Robert Redford, I think it's time for this week's Hollywood Pop Quiz.
And the pop quiz question today, you know, Robert Redford famously hated to watch his own performance. I know a lot of actors do. He found fault in everything he did. But what was the only film in which he was completely satisfied with his own performance? And it's a good one.
It is a good one.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be right back with that and more about the iconic Robert Redford after this.
Steve and Ann will be right back, but first another stop on the Hollywood tour. There's no doubt one of Robert Redford's most iconic roles was the Sundance Kid in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. It co-starred, as everyone knows, Paul Newman. Well, looking back, that pairing seems kind of a given, right? But believe it or not, Redford was not the studio's first choice. In fact, Redford once said, quote, "The studio didn't want me because I was not known. They were trying to have a star comparable to Paul to be with. I practically did that film for nothing." He went on to say, "I probably had more fun making that film than any other that I did." And get this, Redford apparently had a member of Newman's family to thank for landing that part. That's right, Joanne Woodward read the script, turned to Newman and said emphatically, "The only guy that can play Sundance is Bob Redford." We hope Mr. Redford sent Joanne Woodward some flowers at least. And now back to Steve and Ann from Beneath the Hollywood Sign.
Welcome back, everybody, as we talk about the incredible Robert Redford and pay tribute to his artistry. But before we get further into his life and career, we're going to give a shout out to our Listener of the Week. And this week, we honor Mark Christian Miller. Mark wrote us, and he loves jazz. He loves big band music. So maybe we'll have to do an episode about the big bands of old Hollywood.
Ooh, or the films that covered the big bands.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So thank you, Mark. We really appreciate the support.
Thank you, Mark. All right, I'm going to dive in with my next choice, which is Jeremiah Johnson, 1972, directed by Sidney Pollack again.
Sidney Pollack. They loved each other.
They did. Screenplay credit given to John Milius and Edward Anhalt. It's based on the true story of trapper John Johnson, also known as Crow Killer and Liver Eater Johnson.
Oh, nice.
Say no more,
Liver
right?
Eater.
That sort of describes it, right?
Yeah.
Here's a fun fact about this film. Music by John Rubinstein and Tim McIntyre.
The actor?
Well,
And the son of John McIntyre?
yes, Tim McIntyre being the son of John McIntyre and Jeanette Nolan. And yes, that would be John Rubinstein, the Tony Award-winning
Wow.
actor for Children of a Lesser God and star of one of my favorite TV series, Family.
Yes. He was Meredith Baxter's ex-husband.
I got to work with him on an audiobook once, and he was delightful.
Oh, good actor.
Redford plays, of course, the title character, Jeremiah Johnson, a quietly rebellious mountain man who, after a stint in the U.S. Army, chooses a life of solitude living in the mountains of the American West. He searches for a piece of land upon which to build a house and encounters a lot of challenges and kind of interesting characters along the way, including fellow frontiersman Bearclaw, and not the kind you eat, played by Will Geer, a man buried up to his neck in dirt, played by Stefan Gayrash, and a crazy woman, and that is really her character's name, Crazy Woman, played by Alan Ann McClary, who witnessed her family being slaughtered and insists that Jeremiah take her son, played by Josh Albee, which he does. Jeremiah also acquires a Native American woman as a wife, played by Dell Bolton, who, by the way, was not Native American, creating this really unusual but ultimately beautiful family. He learns how to coexist with some of the many Native American tribes, most importantly, the Crow, on whose land Jeremiah ultimately decides to build his home. But when the U.S. Cavalry, led by Lieutenant Mulvey, played by Jack Colvin, who I used to study acting with,
Oh, that's right.
asks for Jeremiah's help in locating some stranded civilians, a chain of events forever change the peaceful relationship he has worked so hard to achieve with his neighbors and their land. Now, this film is often cited as one of Redford's favorite films, and it was one of the first where he was actively involved in the development of a starring vehicle for himself, revamping the script's first draft with director Pollack. This is truly an epic picture with gorgeous cinematography, complete with an overture and intermission, even though the film is only 108 minutes long.
I love that old school.
I know. Pollack called the film his silent movie because there's so little dialogue in it. And Redford is quoted as saying, the film should have a lot of silence in it. It shouldn't be a very talky script because who was there to talk to? Which he's right.
Yeah.
This was the first Hollywood Western to play at the Cannes Film Festival.
Oh, really? That's
which
interesting.
I did not know.
Yeah.
And it was nominated for the Palme d'Or, as well as marking Redford's second time working with Sidney Pollack after the film you just talked about, This Property is Condemned. They would make a total of 7 pictures together following Jeremiah Johnson with The Way We Were, 1973, 3 Days of the Condor, 1975, The Electric Horseman, 1979, Out of Africa, 1985, and one that I forgot about, Havana. 1990.
Oh, I forgot about that one too.
Haven't seen that in so long.
Oh, so long.
According to Redford, getting Warner Brothers on board with the film wasn't easy, with struggles over the budget and how to market the film. Redford insisted that it be shot on location in Utah, Redford's adopted home state, and it was ultimately shot in nearly 100 locations around Arizona and Utah, including land owned by Redford.
Get a little location fee there, Robert.
Yeah, right. When terrible weather struck, it's reported that Pollack mortgaged his home to supplement the budget after Warner Brothers insisted that the cast and crew return to LA and use the backlot. So they didn't do that.
That's commitment.
Yeah. During filming, the temps dropped to as low as 25 below zero. Being a Minnesota gal, I certainly know how challenging that would be.
Yeah.
And it's reported that Redford did many of his own stunts, as he regularly did in his films. But watching this film, I couldn't help but think that Leonardo DiCaprio's The Revenant from 2015
Yes.
and Kevin Costner's Dances with Wolves from 1990, I swear, they watched Jeremiah Johnson
Yes.
and went, okay, we're going to do that. I mean,
Definitely
it's-
owe a little.
Oh, they owe
those-
more than a little, I
to that
think.
movie.
It's another performance by Redford that highlights this quiet strength and emotional depth. And this time with very little dialogue, he once again tells the story with a look or a flicker across his face. It's all in his eyes. There's one particular scene that takes place after an event that I won't give away in case you haven't seen it. But he lets us see that he has lost his mind. And it's such a reminiscent scene of the crazy woman earlier in the film.
Interesting.
It's this beautiful, beautiful silent storytelling. He's always able to play more than one thing at once. This toughness with an emotional vulnerability and an amazing physicality as well.
And there's the beard.
And there's that beard.
I love the beard. It was just it's his own thing.
It's its own
It deserved
thing.
its own credit in the end.
Yes, there is this very fun scene with his wife though, where they finally do fall in love,
Yes.
and he shaves his beard.
He shaves for her,
Yeah.
and then there's that face.
Yeah. And one final fun fact. At one point in the film, Redford's character gives a nod of approval, as, you know, with the beard, which has become a popular social media GIF.
It has?
Yes, you can find it everywhere.
I'll have
It's
to go find it.
crazy. When I was doing research, it was like, oh my gosh, I want this on my phone.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, my final Redford film, and we're going to keep in the tradition of the Native Americans, as
Yes.
you just talked
Yes.
about. I think this movie is so overlooked, and I think it deserves a little more credit. You know, it's the 1969 Western, Tell Them Willie Boy Is Here.
Yes.
It is not a perfect film by any means. It's problematic on several levels, but it really tells this riveting story that's based on true events about this rebellious Native American boy named Willie Boy who has a run-in with the law in 1909 California. Well, the film was written and directed by Abraham Polanski, who was just returning to films after being blacklisted as one of the Hollywood 10 during the McCarthy witch
Okay.
hunt. Well, Polanski had not made a film since his 1948 film noir masterpiece Force of Evil, so this was a big deal for him to be coming back.
Yes. 20 years.
Yeah,
20 plus.
20 years. Well, the film also stars Robert Blake and Catherine Ross, who are both really, really wonderful once you stop cringing at the fact that they're both playing Native Americans in full brown
Oh,
face.
that's awful.
I know, cringy, but it's the way it was. Of course, this was Robert Redford's second pairing with Catherine Ross. 3 months prior, they had blown the screen up in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, which of course became an iconic hit. Well, Tell 'Em Willie Boy Is Here is based on the 1960 book Willie Boy, A Desert Manhunt by journalist Henry Lawton. And it tells the story of Willie Boy, played by Robert Blake, a young Paiute Indian who returns to his Banning, California reservation to resume his relationship with Lola, played by Catherine Ross, who's a Native American girl whose father disapproves greatly of their relationship. Well, Willie and Lola, they meet up clandestinely only to be discovered by Lola's father and his men. Meanwhile, the town's laid-back undersheriff, Chris Cooper, played by Redford, of course, he comes to town to see Liz Arnold, played wonderfully by Susan Clark. Liz is this wealthy Bostonian doctor who wants to come and save the Native Americans, so she is the superintendent of the reservation. They have this volatile love-hate relationship, which is so interesting to watch. I mean, their dynamics are so... You just have to see it. It's like no other relationship I've seen in a while on film. Well, when Lola's father and his men confront Willie Boy, there's this scuffle, and Willie Boy accidentally shoots Lola's dad in self-defense. According to tribal tradition, Lola now becomes Willie Boy's wife in what they call marriage by capture. Well, back in town, Liz, who's taken an interest in Lola and wants to better her and has plans for her future, she begs Coop to go and find Lola and bring her back. So reluctantly, because Coop's sympathies are actually with the Native Americans, he decides to round up this posse of what turns out to be these bloodthirsty ranchers, and he goes out to find Willie Boy and Lola to bring Lola back. Well, this turns into this tense, thrilling game of cat and mouse between Coop and Willie Boy. And while they're adversaries, they really have a deep respect and understanding for each other, which is sort of an interesting, beautiful relationship. The film provides this very insightful look at the complex socio-political dynamics between the white men and Native Americans at the turn of the century, too, which is interesting. While the film won critical praise, especially for Robert Blake, it was not a huge hit at the box office. However, it did go on to win 2 BAFTA awards, one for Robert Redford, which you'd mentioned earlier, as Best Actor, and one for Catherine Ross for Best Actress, which surprises me because I thought it was a supporting role.
Yes.
But what do I know? Well, while making the film, Redford had issues with the direction and the script. And he was, as we all know, he's a fervent supporter of the indigenous people. So he felt that the portrayal of the Native Americans was really unrealistic. Redford once said, and this is a quote, "Polanski had Indians talking like characters out of some of his 30s movies. Some of it really made me cringe when I read it."
Yes.
Well, Polanski, he countered by implying that it was Redford's ego that was the problem. And he said, "Redford was a big supporter of my movie until everyone started talking about how wonderful Robert Blake was."
I don't know if I believe that.
I know. But regardless, it is a well-crafted, well-acted film that I think should be better known.
Yeah, that's a great choice.
Yeah,
I love
thank you.
that. Well, let's finish this off with a political film, and we know that Redford was very interested in that genre as well. The Candidate, 1972, directed again by Michael Ritchie.
Michael Ritchie.
Written by Jeremy Larner, who actually won the Academy Award for this screenplay. It has one of, in my opinion, the greatest ending lines in film history. What do we do now? Which is just, if you see the film.
I think we're all asking that question now.
What do we do now?
What do we do now?
This was apparently Larner's last screenplay that he ever wrote, which I guess when you've won the Oscar, you just figure, how can I top that?
Stop on top.
Yeah. The film was also nominated for Best Sound, and I just have to give another shout out to John Rubinstein because he is again responsible for composing some of the music. It's so fascinating.
Knew?
If I run into him again, I have to ask him about that.
You have to ask him, yes.
Redford plays Bill McKay, an idealistic lawyer and son of a former governor, played by the great Melvin Douglas, who gets talked into running for the U.S. Senate by a campaign manager, played by Peter Boyle. Talk about a beard.
Yes, he had one.
In this movie.
Yeah, I always think of Frankenstein when I see Peter Boyle.
I know, it's hard not to. Looking for his next Democratic candidate. McKay agrees to run, but only after being assured that he can tell the truth. Because if he tells the truth, there's no way he's going to win against three-term incumbent Republican Senator Crocker Jarman, played to perfection by Don Porter. You really just buy that he's this seasoned
He
senator.
seems like a seasoned veteran of the politics.
But as the campaign moves forward, we see our hero slowly being compromised in the process. And you also see the underbelly of the political world revealed, complete with marketing to ensure the right look and the right soundbite. The film also highlights the conflict between father and son and this sort of old political agenda and the new political agenda. The film features a number of cameos, including Natalie Wood as herself.
As she plays herself, that's right. Yeah.
Hubert Humphrey, George McGovern, Howard Case. I mean, the list goes on and on. Redford described the film as a labor of love, and it's another film that touches on this intersection of politics and corruption, like 3 Days of the Condor, 1975, All the President's Men, 1976. Redford wanted to work with Michael Ritchie again because reportedly Ritchie had worked as technical advisor on various political campaigns. And Larner, the screenwriter, used to write political speeches for presidential candidate Eugene McCarthy. So the scene where McKay is berated in a men's room is based on an incident that actually happened to the presidential candidate. Larner also said that the moment when somebody hands McKay, Redford, a Coke and a hot dog so that his hands are occupied and then they slug him in the face, that really happened to Eugene McCarthy.
That's crazy.
The scriptwriter also recounted how, quote, he wrote that character for Redford, obviously, and he told me at one point, I can easily play a character stupider than myself, but I can't be a bad guy. My public wouldn't stand for it. Vice President Dan Quayle stated that he had seen the film several times and had modeled himself after the main character. Now, this led to Larner writing an open letter to Quayle that said the film is, quote, not a how-to picture. It's a watch out picture, and you're what we've got to watch out for.
Oh,
Redford's performance, you said earlier that he contemplated perhaps running for office. He does make you believe that he could have won office in real life.
absolutely.
His charisma is in full force, and although this is a more animated performance due to the character than the other two films I chose, Redford still manages that reserve and that quiet internal life, and it's so multi-layered. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but it's just who he was as an actor.
It was his strength as an actor.
It just is so brilliant. There's also one of the most poignant moments in the film takes place after the debate. McKay has tried to discuss the real issues as opposed to, the fake nonsense. But he wonders aloud, quote, "I wonder if anyone knew what I was trying to say." And he asks this to his father. And Melvin Douglas answers with pride, "Don't worry, it doesn't make any difference."
Wow.
So it's one of these films that only gains relevance in our time. Rewatching it the other night, aside from the sideburns from the 1970s, which were never good. Oh my gosh, they're like beards in themselves.
They are.
Oh, and the suits. It could be, made in 2025.
I was going to say it's so relevant about what we're dealing with today.
Well, and it's a satire because that's how it's billed, but watching it, it's all too serious.
Yeah.
It really is. I got to tell you, the two of us, go on and on about more Redford films. I have to ask you a question.
Yes.
Can you name your all-time top Redford film? Is there one you could say, of all of them, even the ones that are popular and people know?
Yes, I can. It's not a big surprise. It's kind of a cliche, but how can you go wrong with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid?
Okay.
I could watch that movie on a loop.
Yes.
I love it. And
Yes.
the chemistry between he and Paul Newman is incredible, electric.
I agree.
It's a great movie. Yeah.
Okay,
What about you?
I'm gonna say the same thing about the chemistry, but I'm gonna go with The Sting.
The Sting,
That's
yeah,
my all-time
yeah.
favorite Redford
Two
movie.
great ones.
Yeah, what a fabulous man, and he will be so missed.
So missed. No one like him.
Well, let's remind people of this week's Hollywood Pop Quiz.
Well, the question was that Robert Redford famously hated to watch his own performances, but which performance did he actually walk away being completely satisfied with his own performance?
Well, I think he knew it was my favorite film, The
Exactly.
Sting.
It's The Sting, which, it is a perfect performance. It's a perfect film.
And it's a perfect film.
But I have to disagree with him. I can name 20 Robert Redford films where he's perfect.
Yes, he's pretty perfect.
Yeah.
I think I might have mentioned I got to work at the premiere of A River Runs Through It. I don't know if I've ever...
no.
I have a dear friend who was working for Sundance at the time. And so I got to go to the premiere.
Wow.
And I saw him across a crowded room. And he had on a white suit with a white scarf. And he literally glowed. I
Yes.
mean, he was probably 10 feet away from me. And I couldn't take my eyes off him.
Some people have this internal glow
Yes.
that's just incredible.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thanks everybody for sharing this time with us. We would love it if you would follow us on social media. Our handle is @FromBeneathTheHollywoodSign. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook. And you can also watch the podcast on YouTube. And if you do that, please subscribe and give us a thumbs up.
And you can also email us. We love hearing from you guys. Please email us at info@FromBeneathTheHollywoodSign.com.
That's this week's view.
From Beneath the Hollywood Sign.
You've been listening to From Beneath the Hollywood Sign with Steve Cubine and Ann McNamara, the podcast that celebrates amazing stories of Tinseltown from its golden era. Join us next week for another episode and learn something else about Hollywood you probably never knew. Take a moment and give us a 5-star rating and a positive review, and tell your friends about us too. It'll help grow the podcast. Visit Steve's website at FromBeneathTheHollywoodSign.com. The executive producers are Steve Cubine and Nan McNamara. Executive producer and post-production supervisor Lindsay Schnebley. Associate producer and researcher John Price Ritchie. This podcast is part of the Airwave Media Podcast Network. Visit airwavemedia.com to listen and subscribe to their other fine shows like The Box of Oddities and The Shallow End with Schnebley and Toth. Copyright 2025. All rights reserved. That's a wrap.
Am I starting this thing?
See how ready we are?
We're so ready.
Go back.
Could you sound slightly excited?
Go
I know.
back. Go back. I'm gonna kick it, and then you're gonna do.
Thank
okay.
you. All right, you kick it.